For women's empowerment.
Yes.
And you guys are having your inaugural event here in Los Angeles this summer, and you're sponsoring a women's empowerment walk. Tell us about the walk.
The first time I ever got slut shamed, I was 14 years old. I was still a virgin. And me and my friends started making out with boys, I guess, at that time.
Okay, so it's called the Amber Rose Slut Walk, and it's about every equality issue that us women deal with on a daily basis.
I never dated a man to become famous.
You know, I think Amber Rose is good because she does it proudly, and she kind of gives girls a lot of self-confidence that seems to be lacking these days.
Unfortunately, I was extremely slut-shamed. I was called nothing but a stripper.
Notice every year, this woman, Amber Rose, have a big parade of sluts, and they have like events, and the sluts come out half dressed and slutty and half naked and twerking, and it's like all the degenerates come out, right? And what they want to do is take the shame out of being sluts.
Shame is necessary in society.
A whore or a prostitute or whatever you want to call it, they do it for money. That's why they're called whores, prostitutes. It's been like that since forever.
And it's just a bunch of sluts and lesbians and homosexual people.
Women empowerment doesn't come from bearing everything you got.
Me entering a woman is different than a woman being entered. Okay. But that's a whole other thing.
And she actually does slutty things. So though she's trying to listen.
What she creates this image for women that you have to meet up with, and I'm kind of like, suck my dick.
I think she feels like being a sexual person doesn't mean that I want to have sex with everybody, and I completely agree with her. I love sex.
Yeah, but
I'm a very sexual person.
But then you're not a slut.
Doesn't mean I want to have.
Like, women shouldn't have to try to prove a point and, you know, expose their bodies as females. I feel like that's why a lot of men don't really respect females, because they always try to prove a point.
Dress however the fuck she wants, even if her pussy's hanging out and her ass is out and titties is all out, and you know, anything that she does should be okay, and she shouldn't, you know, be.
You know, it's 2015. I think girls should like not be afraid to like walk back from, you know, having had sex the night before.
She has a point. I feel like women shouldn't be exposing themselves, but at the same time, it doesn't look any classier if a man were to go out and take his shirt off and walk outside without the shirt.
So, sex positivity. This term of phrase does not have a one-size-fits-all approach. It is dependent on the individual feelings towards sex and how they choose to explore and express that. Women have been pioneering for their sexual liberation since the dawn of time, since these repressive systems have continued to subject them to the mistreatment of them, depriving them of their freedom of choice and their right to explore themselves freely and sexually.
Sex positivity for me is a thing that helped me work through my hypersexuality.
And seeing lust and fun and playfulness is all part of being sex positive.
What if we all leant in and discovered what brought us pleasure? Not only would we improve our relationships, but we'd also play a massive role in smashing the taboo around female sexuality.
And this obviously leaves women at risk of, you know, being sexually exploited. There's a lot of rape cases where women don't feel as though they have the ability to speak out because they'll just be labeled as a slut or a whore or, you know, other derogatory names that can be made up for women, because we know there are more than 1 million.
But taboo reaction to sexual violence, hypersexuality. As a survivor, this conversation feels taboo because a lot of people imagine that when somebody experiences sexual violence, that the reaction is to become more modest and sexually repulsed. But there are some people like myself who end up in situations where they engage in sexual activity to empower themselves by something that disempowered them.
Right. Bill Cosby rapes me. I tell someone, now I have to go to trial, right? Not only I have to pay for my lawyer fees, but everyone is telling me, including my lawyer, that I'm not gonna win. So now I done racked up maybe $150,000, $175,000 in lawyer's fees, and I can't pay that. So now my lawyer's like, okay, you're not gonna win this case anyway, so you might as well settle out of court, get your money back, go back to obscurity and take care of your family. So that's usually what happens with women in rape cases with powerful men, is that they wind up just taking the money because they don't have enough to fight for it.
In incredibly dangerous activity. I mean, I showed up at random locations. I got into strange cars.
And raped them. 60 of them that actually came out.
But there's no proof of that. They just said it.
I didn't tell anyone what was going on.
Now, these systems of power are constantly at play, whether that be through media consumption and the general patriarchy. Dare I say it?
To set women free of this idea that orgasms were only from some kind of penetrative sex, some kind of thing that they were doing wrong, some kind of G-spot or whatever.
Female sexuality, and more specifically female pleasure, remains taboo.
Orgasm is an orgasm, an orgasm.
Men, you climax more than women.
So now, the second question was, how many people have faked orgasms?
Now, fake orgasms because they want to please their partner, because most women don't know that clitoral stimulation is the main way to orgasm.
When masturbating, 95% of women orgasm. In first-time hookups with other women, women orgasm 64% of the time. But in first-time hookups with men, women orgasm just 7% of the time. Yes, our societal conditioning that pushes this penis-centric heteronormative sex as the default is at fault here. But the good news is that there is an immediate solution that lies right directly within you.
We have a pleasure gap.
Now, sex positivity isn't just about wearing what you want. It's about giving people the tools and the freedom to be able to search within themselves to find what satisfies them and what makes them feel good and empowered in order to be able to give all the pleasure that you may receive from somebody else it to yourself. Now, that's where the real power is. This means that people are no longer dependent on other people to satisfy them in the way that they feel they should be satisfied. And the number one thing about pleasure is knowing what satisfies you. Because if you don't know what satisfies you, how are you going to expect somebody else to know? Make it make sense.
It's at the slut walk, and the sluts were out.
A slut walk is some dumb shit, man.
The slut walk movement was a movement founded by Amber Rose. She is a beautiful goddess of a woman who has been degraded constantly through social media and all these other telecommunication conglomerates because of her freedom when it comes to her sexual exploration.
I feel that Amber Rose has a huge point here. In hip-hop, misogyny is rife. It's everywhere. And no matter what Amber Rose does as a job, no matter what her image is, it doesn't make her any less of a mother, doesn't make her any less of a person, and we should stop treating her as such.
This movement is giving liberation and freedom to people who previously did not have that. And the thing about sex, the most important thing about sex is choice and the ability to do or not do whatever you choose to do.
Women are 4 times more likely to say they've had no sexual pleasure in the last year. If, like me, you grew up with porn, maybe that played a fundamental role. They don't stress the importance of female pleasure to a healthy, happy, and equal relationship.
But also having these discussions and discoveries allows for more people to research and put money into funding for sex education, because how is this the number one thing that most human beings do and we still don't know too much about it? Female genitalia, all the components are named after men. Make it make sense.
The school curriculum puts the fear of life into us about pregnancy and disease. And porn is artificial entertainment.
But how has this movement actually changed how women are viewed and how women can explore themselves? Now, this hashtag and all of the sexual liberation acts that are going on now have enabled women to just express themselves more freely, have enabled women to not be subjugated to sexual violence and sexual crimes based on the way that they are dressed. Just because I'm in a bikini does not mean that it is a yes. We need to find the difference between enthusiastic yeses and coercion and manipulation in order to get sexual gratification.
Sex with everybody.
Right.
But if I wanted to have sex with a couple of people, that's my choice. Of course
it is. Now, she very much does this in the public eye, which is probably why she gets so much scrutiny for it. However, other women are finding themselves being put in the same boat just because, what? They want to dress in slightly scantily clad outfits. However, how come when men want to, scroll on Instagram and, double tap on women who are wearing said scantily clad outfits, they are free to do so? But when they see them in public, they have the audacity to constantly comment on what they're wearing and how they portray themselves. Like, make it make sense.
Yourself, and see, this is what'll make you cringe. Would you want your daughter to do that? What would you say to your daughter if she did that?
I think it's so important that on social media, these conversations are being had is because it allows a wider audience to be aware of certain issues. It allows people who may not be able to gain the access through the community they are in to be able to have these conversations and look at different people having conversations, different demographics, different age groups, different body weights, different sizes, all these different categories which human beings fulfill. Remember, it's not one size fits all.
I hate those people for being that way. You really can't. It's clear that what they're missing is love. They're missing the love of a father.
I'm a person that likes to have sex with a lot of guys, and I'm not a slut. I don't like the word slut anyway.
It is a double standard, but you need to create a slut walk for that.
The power is stripped and taken from you when you do not have full autonomy over your own body. When you are being made to do things that do not coincide with what you feel like you want to do. That's where the gap is. And this movement encourages people to have their own voice and not just rely on what they're being told or what they're expected to do by social influence.
Like, if you find yourself wanting to commit to somebody who's not making that adjustment for you, there's a billion people on this planet. Like, it's no excuse to be in relationships anymore that make you feel sad or don't make you feel celebrated.
This movement is helping to change and reform new ways of thinking about sex and relationships. It's not just about the physical act, but it's everything else that goes on before it, whether that be in a place of work, whether that be outside on the road, whether that be in your own home, and just mutual relationships with friends. This is all forms of communication, and the more we understand how to communicate with each other, the better we have a chance of existing in a world that's, not dangerous. This will all lead to a better understanding we have of each other. And once we have that, then the rates of all these exploitative methods of taking power away from each other will be, I'd love to say gone, but at least they'll be a tiny bit less, Bell Hooks, the search of love continues even in the face of great odds. This is a constant theme of today. People are constantly searching for love outside of themselves and within different communities.
Whatever you do with yourself is your business.